Are you watching General Hospital and wondering if anyone remembers Willow gaslighting Sasha? Apparently, the legal system in Port Charles runs on plot twists rather than statutes, because Willow has now glided out of an attempted murder charge with the ease of someone picking up dry cleaning. The jury's decision may have been predictable, but watching it actually happen still carried a certain grim fascination, mostly the kind reserved for slow-motion train wrecks. At least viewers were spared a cliffhanger. The courtroom tension may have provided chills, but only the sort one gets from realizing the writers are clearly enjoying this marathon of evasion. Then there's Michael, the ever-silent observer. He very likely saw exactly what Willow did, yet remains strategically mute. One can only wonder how long the vow of silence holds before it erupts into the next conveniently timed revelation. Meanwhile, Drew's frosty expression at Kai's handshake with Michael signaled that interpersonal distrust remains far more compelling than anything occurring on the witness stand. Of course, Willow's legal escape doesn't mean the story is done, not by a long shot. Double jeopardy may protect her from another attempted murder trial, but perjury and obstruction are waiting in the wings. And the moment the truth surfaces, the reactions from Chase and Drew promise to be infinitely more satisfying than the verdict itself. Curiously absent from Michael's concerns is Willow's gaslighting of Sasha, a detail that has apparently evaporated from collective memory. A shame, since it would have added another layer to the moral fog bank engulfing this storyline. Some viewers have expressed that this verdict is the final straw. After decades of loyalty, even they cannot endure another round of convoluted logic deployed solely in the name of Cameron Matheson. A talented actor, yes, but hardly worth the show contorting itself into unrecognizable shapes. Not everything, however, is without merit. The spotlight on polycythemia vera, an illness often relegated to medical footnotes, has provided genuine value. For individuals living with the condition, the reminder that untreated PV carries irreversible consequences is more than a dramatic device. It is truth disguised as soap opera exposition. If only the storytelling around it moved with something approaching discipline. Instead, time is poured into Emma and Gio's seemingly endless love scene, a cinematic indulgence that could have been trimmed to a quarter of its length without depriving anyone of romance. Most viewers were far more interested in Anna and the trial, elements curiously treated as afterthoughts. Speculation now swirls about the fallout: Willow leaving Drew, Kai and Trina allegedly earning immunity in exchange for honesty, Michael inevitably cleared of whatever charges hover over him. And if Drew dares withhold visitation rights from Alexis, she may simply reveal the identity of his shooter, because nothing says healthy co-parenting like weaponized truth bombs. All of this unfolds under the grand banner of captivity, a term used so loosely it might as well be replaced with minor inconvenience, especially when the real issue seems to be pharmaceuticals. And through it all, the pacing drags with such determination that audience investment evaporates on contact. In short, the storyline promises endless revelations while delivering mostly exhaustion. And the worst part? It shows no sign of ending. Are you baffled by GH's talent for turning every storyline into a labyrinth of contradictions? The announcement that legions of viewers are done with General Hospital over Willow's not guilty verdict is, of course, adorable. Few daytime devotees have ever successfully staged an actual breakup with this show. It clings to its audience with the tenacity of a soap opera amnesia plot. The vows of permanent departure ring about as true as a Corinthos promise. The devotion persists, even as frustration mounts, particularly over the joyous free-for-all of spoilers. Apparently, the race to publicly declare the verdict began less than an hour after the episode aired, greeting unsuspecting viewers in the middle of their workday like a flashing neon sign reading, "Abandon hope, DVR users." Other television spaces have discovered the radical concept of spoiler policies, but here, the practice seems to be treated as an optional art form. The wish for a civilized grace period remains just that, a wish. Meanwhile, the show's narrative choices continue their tradition of existing somewhere between daring and deranged. The ongoing mentions of Faison's brain preserved in a jar have revived a storyline so spectacularly implausible it practically demands hazard pay from anyone attempting to follow it. As for the upcoming saga in which Willow drugs, ties up, and attempts to kill Drew, only to cite double jeopardy like an amateur constitutional scholar, GH appears poised to offer an entire summer of theatrically misdirected vengeance. Throw in Drew's insistence that Michael pay for a shooting he knows Willow committed, Willow's subsequent betrayal, and a looming showdown featuring competing victim complexes, and the viewers can rest assured. Coherence remains optional. Even the courtroom scenes appear to be improvising their own rules. Judges addressing defendants by name instead of title. Juries offering personalized verdicts. It all exudes the formal rigor of community theater performed under duress. Yet, despite these procedural curiosities, the verdict discourse has become so relentless, it might be time to establish a moratorium. Willow has walked free. She is now, presumably, at liberty to shoot Drew again with impunity. The writers seem perfectly capable of making that happen. On the home front, some viewers now face the ultimate ultimatum. If Willow avoids prison, household GH privileges may be revoked entirely. One can only imagine the suspense as the show risks provoking not just moral outrage, but domestic policy shifts. And then, in a corner of the GH universe where no legal or ethical stakes exist whatsoever, lies the scandal of the pristine Chinese takeout containers scattered across a bed with white sheets. Not a stain, not a rumple, not a utensil in sight. Just immaculate cardboard props pretending to have lived a life. In a household as impeccably maintained as Anna's, the spectacle of bed-based lo mein should trigger a diplomatic incident. The props, however, looked as though they'd never been opened, ensuring the only thing consumed in that scene was the audience's patience. Empty coffee cups were one thing. Empty food containers posing as evidence of a meal are quite another. But such is the charm of General Hospital. A blend of earnest melodrama, procedural elasticity, improbable science, theatrical romance, and immaculate takeout. And despite every complaint, every vow of departure, every exasperated eye roll, the viewership remains. Faithful, frustrated, and, inevitably, ready for tomorrow's episode. Are you watching GH? And wondering when the writers decided that French fluency and forgotten children are just casual character traits? Apparently, the writers have decided that anything is possible in Port Charles, even spontaneous multilingualism. Anna now speaks French, a skill that seems to have materialized from the same narrative void where the show stores forgotten children, lost character arcs, and the ghost of consistency. Naturally, the ongoing Willow saga has become the centerpiece of this narrative free-for-all. The audience was treated to a verdict that defies not only logic, but gravity, common sense, and whatever faint pulse the legal system had left on this show. After shooting a man in the back twice and abandoning him, Willow is not only acquitted, but promptly welcomed back into the company of children. The residents of Port Charles should perhaps invest less in security systems and more in bulletproof kindergarten supplies. Meanwhile, some viewers are busy rewriting criminal procedure like it's fan fiction. There is solemn insistence that Willow can still be hauled off to prison for perjury. Technically true, but treated here as if it's the righteous loophole that will save the moral order. Others are eagerly drafting dual-track legal fantasies, complete with retroactive mistrials, a device as real as Port Charles itself, but undoubtedly attractive to writers who treat jurisprudence the same way they treat continuity, as a suggestion. And then there's the glorious flashback discourse. Despite the show literally airing Willow's own memories of pulling the trigger, there is a stubborn faction insisting that Scout, Wiley, or Michael, yes, the children, are potential culprits. Apparently, the ringtone identifying Willow wasn't merely a narrative clue. It was an act of aggressive exposition. Yet here we are, still entertaining theories that require more denial than a Cassadine paternity storyline. Elsewhere, nostalgia has resurfaced in unexpected ways, namely in the sudden recollection that Ned and Lois once had 2 children, a detail the show seems to have carelessly misfiled sometime around the Clinton administration. And for added texture, viewers have been treated to romantic subplots written with the maturity and wit of a cafeteria dare. The adolescent energy in Cody and Molly's exchanges and the kiss bet between Britt and Jason were so juvenile, one might assume the writers' room collectively wagered they could pass as adults. Thankfully, the younger characters, Gio and Emma, were granted a moment of genuine tenderness, the rare oasis in this desert of baffling dialogue. Of course, all of these intricacies would be more enjoyable if spoilers weren't launched into the world at 8 a.m. like confetti from a cannon. Many viewers cannot watch until the evening, but the daily ritual of immediate plot summaries marches on, unburdened by courtesy or the spoiler tag function that has existed since civilization first learned to use the internet responsibly. And in the background of this chaos, someone is apparently watching a docudrama about Mary Jo Buttafuoco. That choice feels strangely appropriate. It pairs nicely with a show where the most grounded plotline in sight is, alarmingly, the one based on a real crime. General Hospital continues to defy expectations, not by surprising viewers, but by reliably choosing the least coherent option available. Whether Willow stays free, goes to prison, or is whisked away by a retroactive legal loophole that exists nowhere outside the imagination of a soap writer, the consistency remains. Port Charles is a place where logic goes to be shot in the back and left for dead. Never think Port Charles law is about justice. It's about who panics the least under pressure. The latest developments in Port Charles suggest that Emma and Gio may soon join the long, illustrious lineage of promising young romances destined to detonate on schedule. The city's track record is impeccable. Jocelyn watched Vaughn vanish into the bureaucratic abyss of WSB reassignment, while Trina endured the melodramatic plunge of Spencer and Esme into a river, because apparently nothing says closure like a watery exit. Even Trina's current connection to Kai now trembles under the weight of what they know about the shooting of Drew. Should Drew ever discover that Willow was the one who shot him, he seems poised to respond with the subtlety of a wrecking ball, snatching up Scout and fleeing to Washington in an act of paternal melodrama. A long shot, perhaps, but hardly out of character. Meanwhile, Willow's not guilty verdict has only ushered in a fresh era of marital turbulence for Chase in Brooklyn. His unwavering, borderline devotional loyalty to Willow is fast becoming a marital liability, delivering the kind of nauseating spectacle that even Tracy can't resist meddling in. The trial may have concluded, but their marriage appears to be racing toward the nearest exit. The fallout promises to be spirited. Once Chase inevitably learns that Willow is actually guilty, his self-flagellation will almost certainly spare no one. And Brooklyn, armed with righteous fury, will no doubt deliver the blistering verbal reckoning Willow's verdict conveniently sidestepped. The commentary from the sidelines will be deafening. Elsewhere in Port Charles, the long-standing question resurfaces. Why exactly does Carly harbor such disdain for Britt? The offenses remain suspiciously undefined, leaving jealousy as the most convenient and likely explanation. Carly's talent for unprovoked animosity remains unparalleled. Then there is Alexis, who encouraged the children to stay quiet long enough for Willow to secure a verdict that protected her from double jeopardy. Now equipped with the knowledge of Willow's guilt, thanks to those incriminating ringtones, Alexis sits in a strategic position, her victory for Scout secured while Drew teeters on the brink of yet another downward spiral. Something substantial is brewing, and none of it bodes well for him. The show's nostalgic pivot to Nathan, Faison, and Britt also raises eyebrows. The suggestion that Liesl is involved in current events feels particularly far-fetched. Nathan has been gone for 7 years, and the idea that he might simply pick up where he left off strains even Port Charles's elastic reality. And despite skepticism, Diane is more than capable of exposing Alexis to shield Michael. She has known him since birth and would undoubtedly go to the mat for him. Alexis, perpetually several steps behind, remains blissfully unaware. During the reading of Willow's verdict, the expressions were telling. Alexis exuded the relief of someone who has just made it through a red light unscathed. Drew wore his customary look of smug self-satisfaction, as if he personally engineered the pyramids. Willow appeared moments from collapse under the weight of her own freedom. Michael's expression was unreadable, a puzzling neutrality from someone with so much at stake. Alexis's strategy hinges on convincing the jury that Michael pulled the trigger. But the logic crumbles instantly. With a mobster for a father and a hitman as a surrogate father, why would Michael resort to a traceable gun or bother handling the task himself? And why keep the weapon instead of disposing of it through the vast criminal Rolodex at his disposal? His motive is strong, yes, but so is everyone else's. Drew has managed to cultivate widespread resentment, and the amateurish handling of the attack, 2 shots to the back, neither fatal, hardly suggests the precision of a Corinthos-adjacent operation. Port Charles continues to deliver romance, betrayal, courtroom theatrics, and the eternal comfort of bad decisions executed with flair. In other words, business as usual. Don't keep hoping the next episode will fix things. It absolutely won't. The great spectacle of General Hospital continues, and apparently the writers are determined to test just how far they can stretch audience patience before it snaps entirely. The decision to place Michael on trial promises only one certainty. Diane will march Willow onto the stand, crack her like an egg, and finally wring out the confession everyone knows she's hiding. Whether double jeopardy applies or not hardly matters. St. Anne's might as well start engraving Willow's name on the welcome plaque. Meanwhile, the ongoing attempt to make Kai and Trina central to this saga lands with all the grace of a dropped prop. The moment Jocelyn discovers what's brewing, the temperature will rise considerably. Perhaps the only heat this storyline can muster. The great irony is that Michael, the architect of his own downfall, seems to have constructed an elaborate plan to ensure Willow dodges a jail sentence. Despite the rage, he never intended to see her behind bars. Unfortunately, the plan's fatal flaw appears to be that it worked. She escaped punishment, and he became the prime suspect instead. Reports insist the Who Shot Drew storyline is far from over, a warning delivered by co-writers who claim the drama's just beginning. If that's true, the audience may need helmets. The addition of Kai and Trina is being touted as a deeper evolution of the mystery. Others may view it as prolonging a plot that already resembles a maze with no exit. When the truth finally detonates, whether in Michael's trial or the looming custody battle, Willow's carefully polished innocence will undoubtedly crack. And through it all, Chase appears committed to playing the town's most gullible officer, a role he embraces with bewildering enthusiasm. The relentless focus on Willow and Drew continues to siphon the life out of the show. The town is full of characters, yet the narrative orbits endlessly around a pair who provoke widespread exasperation. Willow's willingness to let Michael face prison for a crime he didn't commit, fully aware of what he endured during his previous incarceration, has not earned her sympathy. Nor has the insistence on framing others for her messes. There is one common denominator here, and it is Willow. As for creative decisions, the writers appear determined to drive the program straight off a cliff. The verdict ensuring Willow walks free was the sort of narrative choice that sends longtime viewers retreating to nostalgic archives. The threat of audience erosion is not hypothetical. It is an inevitability when the writing disregards coherence so blatantly. Questions linger too. Why hasn't Michael used what he knows about Willow's past deceptions, particularly her orchestration around Michael and Sasha's baby? What exactly was discovered in Anna's room that sent her into such a panic? And why is the show adamant about sidelining legacy characters like Scotty and TJ as though they've been erased from Port Charles entirely? Perhaps the most baffling thread is the casual treatment of Sonny murdering a federal agent, a crime the show appears content to let evaporate. Even within the elastic rules of soap opera physics, this stretches belief to the breaking point. Some viewers are already voting with their remotes, abandoning new episodes in favor of older, far more satisfying installments. Given the current direction, it may soon become a mass migration. Legacy is a fragile thing, and the show seems determined to shatter its own. Whether Willow's acquittal is a misdirect, a dream sequence, or simply another head-scratching twist, the overall impression remains unchanged. The chaos is intentional, the coherence optional, and the frustration universal. Are you tired of watching Willow defend Drew with the dedication of someone who doesn't even want him? General Hospital has always demanded a certain suspension of disbelief, but the recent wave of creative amnesia would impress even the most forgiving viewer. One streaming stroll through the 2021 Sunny as Mike era is enough to reveal just how much the show has quietly dropped, reshaped, or simply abandoned. Take Martin. Once blessed with a drawl thick enough to butter cornbread, he now sounds as though his accent fell victim to an off-screen witness protection program. There are people who've spent a decade across state lines without losing so much as a vowel, but Port Charles apparently issues complimentary elocution lessons. Then there's Jordan, still, in theory, TJ's mother, though she hasn't mentioned him with anything approaching maternal recognition in ages. The selective memory extends far beyond family ties. Prison sentences, for example, are more myth than practice in Port Charles. A handful of characters, Heather Weber, Sean, Nicholas, and, for honorable mention, Stephen, are the rare exceptions who actually served time. Everyone else seems absolved by tumors, convenient deaths, or plot-driven moral rehabilitation. Franco's tumor absolution, Peter's questionably final demise, Britt and Obrecht's sudden alliance with law enforcement. Each case is treated with the same breezy disregard for consequences. And Jerry Jacks, the man who unleashed poisonous gas on the town? Supposedly dead, presumably forgotten. This epidemic of forgetfulness also extends to unresolved crimes. Jagger's murder remains unexamined, and missing persons, including Amy, who has vanished into the ether without note or explanation. Even casting choices spark déjà vu. The actor playing Emma bears a marked resemblance to a younger Anna, a detail impossible to ignore. Meanwhile, Michael continues to deliver solemn lectures about doing what's best for the children, all while insisting they avoid Drew. Yet Willow, steadfast in her role as the show's most inexplicably committed mother, continues defending a man who lied to and manipulated Wiley, a man the children do not wish to live with, and a man she does not appear to want romantically. Nevertheless, She remains unwaveringly loyal, defying all logic and maternal instinct. Given the rising tally of characters resurrected from certain death, it's no wonder some viewers are beginning to suspect experimental cloning as the next frontier. And in the legal arena, the show's approach to justice is no less fantastical. If Willow is found not guilty and shielded from retrial, the discovery of Brennan's evidence tampering could still lead to the case being reopened, granting Trina and Kai the opportunity to drop their ringtone revelation and topple the ever-resilient Ms. Tate. Pure speculation, of course, but no more far-fetched than anything else on the docket. The Anna Faison saga is another ordeal nearing geological age. Entire generations have come and gone while Anna remains trapped in the same endless cycle of torment, this time without Robert to break the chain. The blame does not even rest with Alexis, whose part in this current debacle pales beside the catastrophic incompetence of others. Had certain individuals shared information with Turner or Michael, the consequences for Willow would be far swifter and far more fitting. Vaughn, meanwhile, suffered the standard fate of anyone romantically linked to Joss: disappearance, death, or some unconfirmed assignment into oblivion. Only Cameron has managed to escape the so-called curse. And then there is Sunny, once the indomitable Dawn of Port Charles, now a remarkably pliable figure who allows hostile parties to waltz into town unchallenged. He has reached a point where even Alexis can dismiss him in favor of rescuing Scout, leaving him reduced to a spineless shadow of his former self. The structural issues plaguing the storylines are impossible to ignore. The supposed tension surrounding Michael, Willow, the children, and Drew falls apart under scrutiny. A thoughtful, diplomatic strategy would resolve most conflicts instantly. Kai and Trina's refusal to involve the district attorney borders on narrative malpractice, especially when doing so might have secured immunity. With the Sidwell arc dragging endlessly and the Willow-Drew plotline collapsing under its own weight, it is little wonder ratings continue to decline. Poor writing has consequences, even in Port Charles. Subscribe for more video.